Welcome back, everybody, to the OPT Network as we continue the battle of COVID-19 and the new variant, the Delta variant. Our guest this morning caught our attention with an incredible, poignant, and sad video.
My name is Felicia Croft. I'm a COVID ICU nurse at Willis Knighton North. The Delta wave that we're seeing now, people are younger and sicker. Yes, we have seen people that have been vaccinated, but they usually go home. And so many of the people that we're getting haven't been vaccinated. And just to know that there's something that could help and people aren't taking advantage of it.
She joins us to talk about being on the front lines and having to treat those in her community and some that she may even call friend. Felicia, good morning and welcome.
Hey, good morning.
So Felicia, tell us about your journey into nursing.
Well, as far as like how I got started, I actually, growing up, never ever thought of being a nurse. I wanted to be a high school music teacher. I actually had a scholarship in choir to go to Northwestern, and my school was fully paid for. And the summer before I started college, my grandmother's baby sister was 11 years younger than her. And she had Hodgkin's disease before and had lots of radiation and lots of treatments. And she had a lot of side effects from those. And she was in hospice, and we went up, stayed with her in the hospice facility, and I helped take care of her. And the nurses there, I was 18 years old. The nurses there taught me how to do things, how to clean her mouth, how to make sure that she was comfortable, the things to look for to know that she was hurting. And I remember there were things that I did to help take care of her that my uncles and my grandpa could not stomach. And there was one day she was really bad, and my grandpa looked at me doing some things with her, and he said, if you don't go into the medical field, I think you've missed your calling.
Wow.
And that's when I changed my major in school. I hadn't even started yet, but I had to change all of my classes, and that's when I decided I was going to be a nurse. Now, that's not when I finished school.
Sure.
But that's when I decided that's what I was going to do with my life.
So when did you know that, in that moment, did you know God has given me a heart to care for people? In that moment, did you kind of just know?
I think I did. I always have been kind of the caregiver. I'm a little bossy. I just kind of...
We call those leadership skills.
Yes, I have leadership skills. And I just kind of want to take things on for people so that they don't have to, take a burden from people. And I think that when my grandpa said that, and I will tell you, my grandpa was my hero. From the time I was little, he was my bestie. And him saying that really just made me think, yes, God has given me an ability with music, but he has given me a gift and a heart for people. And it was just a different, eye-opening, light bulb moment, maybe. If I can do this and I could be this love and this support that the nurses were for us, if I could give that to someone else, that's what I need to do with my life.
And so you finished college, and fast forward 6 years into nursing, and you stay at home. You stay in the Shreveport area, and you bring your talent to Willis Knighton Medical Center. And so then the global pandemic happens. Tell us how you made it through, the first round of COVID. How did that affect you?
So when it first came, we didn't know anything. All we knew was everything we had seen on the news from, China and Italy, and running out of ventilators and having to, decide who has the best chances, who gets these treatments. And it was terrifying to think that we could get to that point. And then also knowing I have 3 kids at home and a husband. My husband and 2 of my children have asthma as well as myself.
Wow.
My husband has severe mitral valve prolapse. And it was terrifying knowing that I could bring this home to them. And my husband was in the same boat. My husband's a paramedic, and they never know what they're walking into,
So what's y'all's conversation like with so many health issues at home, and then you guys both being health providers? How do you guys talk about, the possibility of bringing COVID home?
Well, we basically, number one, there was never a question of whether we were going to continue doing what we're doing. But there was talk about how can we best protect our family. And number one, there's a lot of prayers. I remember coming home and closing my garage and stripping down, calling my kids before I got home so they could go and take the dogs to their rooms and run into my room and showering immediately, Lysoling my shoes and everywhere that I had stepped in the garage, Lysoling my car. I remember all of those things. My husband would change before he came home. And it was a lot of extra steps. And really, it was things that took away time that we got to spend with our kids when we got home. I mean, that was like an extra hour worth of stuff just to make sure that we kept our family as safe as possible.
And so you were able to keep your family safe during the first round. But you saw a lot of death. How did you begin to process that?
That was really difficult to process at first. When you come into nursing, you know that there is going to be death. You know that you cannot save everyone, no matter how much you want to. But I am, I'm a firm Christian, and I know that God has a plan and a purpose, and that pain is never without purpose. There were days that I would get in my car and just cry and have to get myself together before I could drive home. And, I'd get in the shower and I would wash off my day, and I would get out and I would just remind myself how thankful I am that my family's safe. And then I would go and I would just take on the next day. It's one day at a time. And there's really no way to feel okay with what's happening. There's no way to make your heart not hurt for the people that can't be there with their family. But I take each day as I'm walking into a mission field, and God's going to give me an opportunity to love someone in a special way today. And I will say COVID has given a brand new way to love people. And it's really deepened some of our relationships with our patients and their families, because we are their only connections to each other. Which in some ways that's made it harder, because we love them differently and we love them more.
And so with your heart for God and your heart for caring for people, how do you then minister to people, especially in those last hours and minutes of their lives, if you have that opportunity?
One thing that I believe is that no one should ever die alone. And so if I see somebody's vitals are changing, or their heart rate is slowing down, their blood pressure is dropping, anything like that, I will, charting can wait. The computer will be there when, later, but I just go in and I hold their hand. I try to call their family if I see something like that is imminent. We've done FaceTimes with family members. We have done just like group calls, so that they can just know that their voice is being heard by the person that they love, even if they can't be there.
Wow. So at that moment, the person is really just, I guess, transitioning. So they're just there. And this is just a comfort for the family to be able to see them for that last time and say goodbye, or say whatever it is that they want to say.
Right. We do have a policy that allows, like with end of life, we can call their family and they can have 2 family members, in the room. We provide all of their PPE and educate them, how to protect themselves and keep themselves safe. So if we have time to do that, I really make an effort to get their family there.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes that's not always an option. People's families aren't here local, or
Sure.
things change too quickly for us to be able to get them there.
Mm-hmm.
And I know, so my dad was a cancer patient. I didn't meet him till I was 17. And
You didn't meet
10
your
years,
dad until you were 17?
Yeah, my real dad. My mom got married when I was 3. My stepdad raised me. He is my daddy, and I'm very, very blessed. But my biological father, my dad, he was diagnosed with cancer about 9 years after he and I met.
Wow.
And we had a very good relationship. He loved my kids. I'm so thankful for the time I had with him. And when he was in home hospice and he was in the dying process, I remember those moments, and I remember how special those moments are to me. Being there with my dad when he passed, being there with my Aunt Mary when she passed. And it hurts my heart that people are being robbed of those moments. So because of that, I really make an extra effort to try and do whatever I can to make them a part of that.
Wow, powerful. Let's get a break here, but when we come back, I want to talk about the video that has been seen by thousands and your heart for seeing so many younger people your age, that are battling this treacherous virus. Stay on point, everybody. We're back with more right after this. Welcome back, everybody, to the OPT Network. Our guest this morning is Felicia Croft. She's a registered nurse in Shreveport at Willis Knighton Medical Center. And we're talking about her experience on the front lines this go round with coronavirus, but seeing people die that are much younger. And so tell us about the video that thousands of people have seen. Tell us about that moment.
So that was a really difficult day. We've had a lot of hard days since this started. But I think what made that day so particularly hard is that it really started for me before I was even at work. My daughter came to me, and she had just hung up the phone with her friend, and found out what all was going on. And she came to me in tears and said, "Mom, my friend just called and asked if we could say some prayers." And said, okay, which, number one, I love that her friends even know that we're people of prayer.
Right. And your daughter is about 14?
Yeah, she's 14. She'll be 15 in November.
Okay.
And she had tears in her eyes, and knowing it's one thing when we have all of that at work, but whenever that at work spills into your home and your children are heartbroken for people that they love and people that they know, it's a different level of burden. It's a different level of connection, and it makes you even more want to get these people home.
Mm-hmm. So tell us about the conversation with your daughter when she gets off the phone with her friend and she comes and says, "Mom, we've got to pray for my friend's parents."
So we did. That's exactly what we did. She told me what was going on. I actually had not been to work yet since they had been admitted. So I didn't know anything other than what they had told me.
Mm-hmm.
And, I knew she was scared, and I knew that they have 3 kids at home, just like I do, and that these kids need their parents. And, we did exactly what they asked us to do. We prayed. And, first we prayed and we asked God for what we hope for, and what we hope for is that they have full recoveries and they come home and they get to see every Christmas and every birthday from here on. But then we pray for just peace and preparation for whatever God's will is. And after we say those prayers, we talk about how can we love and how can we be supportive no matter what God's will is. And sorry.
It's okay. And
Just
sometimes God's will is hard because it's not always in keeping with what our wills are. And that is for those parents to be off the ventilator and with their kids.
right. But also looking at this situation, this has been really a big learning experience for them. Looking at this situation and looking at how God has used it to reach so many people. And still continue to pray for, complete healing, and continue to pray for peace and preparation for God's will, and hoping that as time passes, that our will and his will line up, with whatever that may be.
And so how do you help your 14-year-old to understand that if God's will doesn't line up with our prayers, which are for her friends' parents who both have the virus, who are both in the hospital, if it is not the will of God for them to be restored, how do you help her and her friend, to process that?
There are a lot of stories in the Bible that, man's will doesn't necessarily always line up with God's. I mean, look at Jonah. Jonah's will was not to go to Nineveh.
Right.
And, not for the Ninevites to be forgiven and redeemed. And, God has ways of teaching us things through that process, and just reminding her that he is teaching us something, and that her best ministry is to just show love to the people that need it. And right now her biggest ministry is just to show love to her friend through whatever she's going through, whether it's through the process of starting school the first day and mom or dad not being there, or getting ready for your first homecoming and mom or dad not being there. There are ways to really just love through this process. And it may not be having the right words.
Right.
And that's okay. Sometimes it's just being there to listen, or to let them yell at you, because sometimes they just need someone to get it out.
And so, being that you hadn't gone to work yet, when your daughter comes and tells you that her friend's parents are in the hospital and having some real challenges, that touches you in a way, it seems, on the video, because now these are people your age, and it really comes close to your home. How do you process that as a nurse that's going into the line of fire every single day?
It reinforces even more that I just have to be prayed up. Knowing that I'm the only one in my house that has not had corona. I know that sounds crazy, but knowing that I could leave my kids without a mother, at the age that they're at, is like just a tragic feeling. But knowing that God has placed me here on purpose is enough to keep me there.
Wow. So that has to be very, very strong faith, knowing that you could literally walk away and not go into the metaphorical lion's den every day, and you choose to trust God. Where does that faith come from?
I mean, that comes from a relationship. I mean, I'll tell you, I was raised in church, but I was wild. I had wild teenage years, a wild young adulthood. I didn't live out the faith that I knew. I knew God was real, and I knew that he loved me. But really, probably in the last 10 years, I have really just found a new relationship with him, and a new understanding of what grace is and who God really is to me. And I'll tell you, my best friend, Kristen, bless her soul, she challenges me. And I think God really put us together for that, because she challenges me to explore new aspects of my relationship with Christ. And I have started looking into the history of what things mean in the Bible. And it's just sparked a new excitement for me. And that excitement in the last 10 years has not gone away.
Wow.
And one thing my husband, I told you, is a paramedic.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a nurse. So he works 24-hour shifts and I work 12-hour shifts. We have 3 very active children, none of which can drive yet.
Wow.
And I have looked a lot for positions within the hospital, within nursing, that have better hours. And I've prayed over it a lot. And I've actually put my name up for several of those positions that would have like Monday through Friday, 7 to 3, and just prayed over, if it's God's will for me to have those, that those doors would be opened. And right before COVID started, I did get one. I was working in wound care, lasted for about 6 months, and it was right while my husband was finishing. He was an EMT prior to that, fireman. Now he's fireman paramedic. And it was a really difficult time. And those were the hours that we really needed in that time. And it was the 6 months he was doing clinicals. As soon as that was done, COVID came.
Wow.
And I was pulled to the COVID ICU, and I see God's faithfulness and just providing that in the time of need. And now I see that all those other positions that I didn't get, God has shown me why he still has me in where I am now. Had I not still been in COVID, like, this wouldn't be happening here.
Right.
We wouldn't be talking.
Right.
So I just look back and I just continue to see God's faithfulness in every situation. And sometimes when things are not going how I would like for them to go, I just have to remind myself, God has always been faithful. There's a song, and it's one of my favorite songs, and I almost can't sing it, but it's called Goodness of God. And it just says, all my life you've been faithful, and all my life you've been so good. And I think about that now, and I think about that, I told you I didn't meet my dad till I was 17, and my brothers and my sister had a much harder childhood than I did. And I see that God protected me from that. And I see his faithfulness. And so really just in every situation, I just remind myself he's always been faithful, and that's not going to change. He's going to continue to be faithful, even if I don't understand what's happening right now.
Felicia, you're such a bright light in God's kingdom. Thank you. Thank you for being the light in a very, very dark world right now. And we want to connect with you, but we want to just lift you in prayer, and all of those people who are on the front lines, who are literally putting their lives at risk every single day to take care of our loved ones, our friends, and our family. Thank you, Felicia, for all that you have done and all that you will do.
Thank you.
Indeed. Hey, everybody, stay on point. We're back right after this.